this is Christine Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to a special episode of Black Tea News, or this is an interview. So much we're not doing like the whole different news stories and stuff. I have a single guest that I want to bring on tonight, and I've had her on before. A great friend of mine, Ronquel Baugh, and um, we talked about her story in the past when she had an abortion, a second trimester abortion. It was a pretty traumatic experience that I don't think enough people kind of hear about and know about. So I wanted her to come on and tell her story because there's a lot of people who just have a lot of misconceptions about um, this particular topic. And so I wanted her to share her story and what happened and her view on it today to hopefully encourage some women to get the facts and make informed decisions. When we talked last time, a big topic was whether or not women have true informed consent. So we're just going to go from there. So I'm going to bring in Sister Brown Quail. I call her Sister Brown Quail. I mean, we all call each other sister in church and stuff. So
Hi.
how are you doing, Quail?
I am doing great. I cannot complain. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to be back on YouTube after I told you and people know that I haven't been able to
Yeah.
post for a week because I did an interview not last week because that's when you were supposed to be on last week. Um
Mhm.
but I had on Deborah Tilden and she told her story and which is funny because before I had you on, I became aware of Deborah Tilden, and after hearing her story, I talked to you and I said, I don't think that women really have true informed consent. So I have her on before I have you on. And then they like kicked me off for a week because they didn't like what we were saying. Um,
Mhm.
and she's all about, women's health care and knowing, just being informed and stuff. So I don't say, I'm not mentioning in this title what this topic is about, just to kind of not make YouTube totally, I guess, upset or whatever. But we're gonna continue talking about this topic because I think it's an important topic to
It
talk
is.
about. And I appreciate you having the courage to come on and talk about it.
No problem. No problem. Thank you for having me. And even, keeping me in mind concerning my story, my testimony, and just being willing to, share with other people because it needs a lot of people need to know about it. So, I thank you for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I'm of the opinion that I don't believe that women really have true informed consent with this particular topic. There's a pretty viral video on TikTok some time ago of a woman who had a first trimester abortion and she took the abortion pill, and so she kind of had attitude coming on, and she was like, and I'm going to explain this because you pro-lifers have no idea what this is like.
Mhm.
And a lot of pro-life people are like, no, we know. That's why we try to like tell people so they
Mhm.
know before this happens. And she had a very like angry outlook on people like me, and I'm just kind of like, if you didn't have such animosity, maybe you would
Mhm.
have heard before you went in there. Maybe she still would have decided the same thing because it's becoming more of a trend for people to go through it and be kind of honest, so people do know what's going to happen, but they still
Mhm.
will go through it, or want other women to go through it. But so what's kind of your perspective, I guess, on the political landscape? Because you didn't really. This is a recent thing that I learned about, and I guess not too recent now, but I didn't know about it till you wrote your book.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts concerning it politically is always stem from, who I am as a woman of God. That's, just first and foremost. But um being as it may that I went through something naturally and having to experience taking a life, rather however, no matter however, people want to see it, that's what it is. And I was very young. I didn't completely understand like what all would take place mentally, physically, emotionally, and honestly even spiritually. It was a decision, made more or less based off of um, what was thought of, not necessarily just for myself, what would be okay for that time,
Mhm.
or what would be seen to be better for me at that time. However, it wasn't entirely my own decision because I was young, but nevertheless, after going through the experience and all of that, I realized, what takes place and what happens to the woman's body afterwards. It's very much more best that you go through with doing what the woman body naturally does, which is give birth, than to rather go through a process of taking a life, from your womb. Like, the woman is still left with scars, rather physically, like I said, mentally, emotionally. And I think these are things that people don't talk about, which it
Mhm.
should be talked about. I feel like people stray away, or they act like they're afraid to give the raw truth. If you're going to give the truth, then give the truth. Don't give half of it, don't give some of it, don't want to trim around it, but give the full truth. And I mean, in that, with some people, they may still choose to, go through with having an abortion, maybe so. But I think if people are more informed as to what it really does, to not only, the fetus that's within the body, but also what will take place to the woman's body, it will help give more clear understanding, for these young girls, that's going through this process. So for me, I mean, of course, I'm not for it. I've been through it, and just what I went through, experiencing life afterwards, I would have rather much had my child today than, go through what I went through. So yeah.
So before we back up and I guess set the scene and talk about what happened, is there, I guess, a reason why you held it so close to the chest? Because this isn't a topic that I shied away from or anything like that. So to finding out that you went through that, I was like, oh my gosh. Because you had, last time we spoke about this on the show, you had mentioned that when someone talks about abortion, you would like feel weirdness or like flips in your stomach. Is that still the case?
Not as much, and I think that's only because of, if I'm 100% honest, because of my relationship with God. When you go through your process of healing, and you allow God to, to do a work, he can help repair and remove and, do whatever needs to be done. But very fairly, like, early on after that situation happened, it was very hard for me to hear women even talk about having birth, and, well, giving birth, to a child. And I can't explain why, but it was an internal thing where it was like anytime I would hear someone talk about giving birth to a child or miscarrying or just anything along the lines of that, my stomach would cringe. And in the beginning, sometimes it was so much so that it was like, you know how you would get like nauseated or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
it was that bad. Over time, it got a little better, but I could still, and it just happened. It was just something that would naturally happen internally. It wasn't something I was making my body do. It was just naturally what would take place. And I just believe it's because your body recognizing the trauma that, it went through. Um, that's what would take place. And that happened for several years. It wasn't up until, I'll say, maybe sometime recent. I want to say, because
It
how
must have
long
been
ago
recent
was
because
that?
when you were in the studio, like I remember you like, oh my gosh, my stomach, like,
Yeah, like
I felt bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
no, no, no. I mean, it took time. It takes time, for a wound to be healed. And even though at that time to someone else it may seem something small, something simple, there's still trauma, that takes
Mhm.
place with the body. And I believe now, I'm spiritually and mentally aware enough to know that that's what that was. And so when my body would cringe and have that internal reflection, it was because of what my body had experienced. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's.
I mean, it sounds like you really had post traumatic stress, and you weren't diagnosed or what. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I mean that's what it kind of sounds like to have that kind of phantom pain, considering what you went through. But
Mhm.
let's back up. So set the scene. So you were in high school. You were
Mhm.
17, correct?
Correct.
And you were with a guy who you really cared for,
Yep.
but was it, you couldn't see that it was mutual, that it wasn't mutual, correct?
Correct.
So you found out that you were pregnant. But just you set the scene, you tell the story.
Okay. So yeah, so this was a guy that I was dating in high school. And at the time he was my boyfriend, technically. And after, some time of dating, of course, you go through the period, well, not saying it like that, but like eventually we became sexually active, whatever, and then a child was conceived. However, I didn't know that I was actually pregnant until I was already like 2 months of being pregnant. And so once I found out that I was pregnant, it took me longer to like figure out like maybe what was my next steps or etc. Primarily because my mom didn't even know that I was having sex or anything of that nature. So I didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, I know I have to tell my mom at some point, but she doesn't even know that I'm having sex. So it's like gonna be a very big shocker that it's just like not only am I having sex, but I'm pregnant. And
Mhm.
so I didn't really know what to do there. So what it was is that I learned through a few girls that were in they were they were in a class higher than me at the time. They were a little bit older than me. And I had learned through one of the girls that they went through a process of getting an abortion by themselves. And I didn't know how. And so I had begun to ask questions, and the young lady shared with me that I want to say she may have said that she learned through the teen health center that there was a process that you would go through to get consent from a judge or whatever, and this is
Mhm.
all behind closed doors without the parent knowing anything about it. You would write a letter and share basically why you want to terminate your pregnancy, and just sharing your situation, and then the judge would give consent based upon it from what you wrote in your letter, if they felt it was okay, for you to do. So when I.
If I could just if a pause for a second, because in the I mean, we live in Michigan, for those of you who don't know, and we just had a big change to our constitution. And I don't think many people know how bad it was, because there's only a little bit that was on the ballot,
Mhm.
and there's a lot that people don't know and never read, and didn't understand or whatever. And I don't say that to be insulting to the people who voted. It's just I think a matter of fact. When I talk to people, a lot of people just really didn't understand what was in it. But there was a big concern going around from people saying, like, people that, because it gives everyone the right to reproductive freedom, is
Mhm.
what they call it. But they said it's every individual. They don't say that women, it's every individual, so men too. And it could apply to other things outside of um, pregnancy, because it actually says all matters related to pregnancy, and it goes through a list of different things. And I'm like, well, sex is related to pregnancy, is it not? Because it says including but not limited to. I'm like, that's a heck of a thing to put in your constitution.
Mhm.
But people were concerned because it says you can't discriminate against, the individual or whatever, so you can't have age discriminations and stuff. So and the laws on the book say that that a minor has to get consent, but you can go through like the process that you're describing. And so people were concerned that those limitations, even maybe that shield there, would even be taken away. And so the pro choice side of things were saying, "Oh no, that's not true." But the ACLU and Planned Parenthood both advocate to have parental rights or parental permission, consent stripped away because they say, well, that person needs that privacy, and so they they say privacy, but they obviously want to make it sale, and um, but women minors going through this process, this is a surgery, and this is something that can dramatically impact your life. It was, we'll get into your story, how it was traumatic for you, what you went through, but there are also people who have died. There was a woman some years ago, young lady who was a minor. Her parents didn't know. Her boyfriend's sister, I think, helped her get to the abortion clinic, and she died. And that clinic that she went to ended up being shut down and had a lot of different problems with it. But allowing kids to just be able to go there without their parents' knowledge, it's not a good thing to encourage society to keep moving toward this direction. It used to be that that side of the Democrats used to say like safe, legal, and rare, but now it's like anytime, any place, any reason. And so whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, or a lot of people think that abortion is a necessary evil, but where people are really trying to push beyond that. So it's, like I said, anytime, any place, any reason. Like, it's people are saying it's self care, and not just healthcare, but self care and an act of self love. That's the pitch. And your story, it was definitely not self care. So you can please resume unless you have like a particular comment on what I just said. But
No, no, no. Just besides the fact that everything that you're, pinpointing, it makes sense, as far as my story being told, so that people can understand how deep this goes, as far as children, being able to go behind their parents' back and having the right to do these things, and like you said, people have died, from it, and different things of that nature. So, but yeah, so that was along my process. I was getting this information from this young lady, and she was sharing with me what I could do to go through the process of possibly getting an abortion without my mom knowing. And so after she shared with me all of this information, I was in thought of it, but at the same time, I was a lot of in fear, because I had never been pregnant, like I've never been through any of this before, So, yeah, I really didn't know what to do or what not to do. But however, needless to say, as time went on, things started happening. I was beginning to show, and I contemplated for so long that by the time I did actually go ahead with making an appointment and getting everything done, I had, of course, eventually told my mom and everything, because I was still very much afraid, and so to do that without her knowing, and then something happening to me, whatever, like I end up, sharing with my mom, which was the right thing, for me to do. However, as time went on, my mother and we sat and we talked about everything. And, my mom felt it, that was best for me. At the time, she did let me make the decision myself, but she gave me her own thoughts and how she felt about it, etc. And from that, I made the decision to move forward with getting an abortion. And so once my mom took me to set up the appointment, and we went in, we filled out paperwork, all that stuff. I began to go through the process of like getting the information and the knowledge of how everything would go concerning, like, how can I explain this? Because like they give you paperwork and information talking about the abortion. But I guess no paperwork could ever explain what you physically and mentally go through
mhm.
afterwards. Like they share to some degree the risk and different things of that nature, but it still doesn't amount to what you actually go through physically and mentally. And so I learned about a
Was
couple
it was
things.
it was it in the clinic where they gave you the information, or because I don't know if they still had all the same laws back then. So there was like a 24-hour waiting period, correct?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you had so did they direct you to like the Michigan website and you looked at different stuff? Is that what happened, or they just gave you papers?
No, they just gave papers. And it's pretty much just like regular documentation as far as covering on the behalf of the doctor, basically, and what steps you'll go through as far as like going into the back of the room, what is the anesthesia, and et cetera, et cetera. You can get put to sleep, you cannot get put to sleep, what's the how long of the process, will be, and them checking to see, well, how far along you are, and then getting the parents' consent, and pretty much that. So it's like they give information, but they keep it general to a degree. And then they, of course, they give the amount, like how much it's going to cost, for everything. But that's pretty much it, as far as from what I can remember, because that was several years ago. But yeah.
Yeah, what do you know what year it was off the top of your head?
Oh, I graduated in 2011. Um, so yeah, it was 2011, probably um the beginning of 2011. I want to say maybe.
Okay, so I wonder if they because nowadays I think to do the informed consent or whatever, you get the waiting period and you go online to the to Michigan Department of Health or somewhere or whatever they send you, and they do have information like what week you're, if they tell you what week you're at or whatever, you can read kind of like the development or whatever. But
Mhm.
you can just click through that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying, I guess I think there should be a law where they peel your eyes back and you have to watch a video or something like that. But fighting against like 24-hour waiting periods and informed consent laws is something else that the abortion lobby fights as well. It's funny that people want waiting periods for you to have a firearm to practice your Second Amendment right, but they want you to just be able to go in and take out a baby. And how far along were you at the time?
If I can remember correctly, I was 17 weeks. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so you go in there and on the day, well, what happened? So your mom said, you told me before that you're at the really heart of the issue is that you thought it would be a blank slate, and that's why you decided to have the abortion.
Correct.
And so usually there's a lot of, I don't remember all the statistics off the top of my head, but a lot of Americans believe that, in exceptions for like life of the mother, sexual assault and incest, but a lot of Americans feel like 6 weeks is fine, or 15 is a statistic, a place where a lot of people feel comfortable with. So this is beyond that point where a lot of people think that they're comfortable with, but they think that women only have abortion like closer, I guess, beyond 15 weeks, and if there's some kind of medical situation, and it's not the case.
Mm-mm.
And I also think it's I think time I think weeks are kind of a bad argument
Mm-hmm.
to for compromise on the issue. I mean, I don't think you should do it anyway, but if people feel that women should be able to have an abortion because they don't like the guy that they're with or something, or they break up, their relationship status change, and that's fine if they have an abortion at 6 weeks for that. But that same circumstance can happen at week 17 or 18 or so on.
Mm-hmm.
So if the reason was okay then, I don't understand why the reason is not okay later. So I don't think the weeks make any sense, because if we're going to say that um it's okay to do it like at week 15, but not at 15 weeks and 6 days, then why is it not okay at 16 weeks and day one? Like, is that, is that time just like all the difference in the world? To me, that doesn't make sense.
It don't. It doesn't. It really doesn't. But yeah, going off of what you were saying, like that was my thought process, in which I think a lot of young women, rather, well, I can't even say young, but like a lot of women, they have that thought process. It's like, oh well, if I do this, then I have a clean slate, I can move forward, and maybe I can start over, I can change whatever decisions and stuff that I made that led me here, or whatever the case might be. Like I said, what you go through physically and mentally afterwards is, it's not worth it. But nevertheless, I after that day of getting the paperwork, and me and my mom being there, whatever, setting the appointment, the first day of my process, they gave me medication to kind of like make me a little drowsy, I guess you would say, because it didn't put me to sleep. I was still awake, and it was supposed to put me to sleep, but it did not. And when the doctor, and the nurse came in, I was already, of course, undressed and everything or whatever, and they began the process. But as they began this process, and the doctor goes in and they begin to pull on my cervix, I could feel everything that was taking place at that time. And it wasn't until it was like well over a nice amount of time before I had actually like went out. But during the first half of everything, I felt everything. I felt every pull. I felt every tug. And
You said you were
afterwards,
crying on the table, weren't you?
yeah, I very much was. Yeah, I very much was. And um, like it was like I was like I could feel some of the effect of the medicine, but it didn't put me out. And so because of that, I could still hear everything. I could still feel everything. And I was very much still present in the moment. And yeah, it was definitely not a good feeling. It's not something that I would ever want to go through again. Like now, even still to this day, people talk about um other kinds of like surgeries or different things, and it's not something that I ever want to like deal with or be a part of it. Like even if it's down just to a tooth, like I'm like, yeah, no, like it's not something that I want to experience. But especially in that perspective, I would never put myself through it again. But that was the first day, and then the first day after that happened.
Wait, before we go to the second day, in your book you talk about how you have, it's like you have second thoughts,
Hmm.
and the doctor's kind of like, you ready? And
Yeah.
so do you think if someone would have been like last second to kind of try to drive you away, do you think you would have maybe turned away or
Changed
made a
my
different?
mind.
Yeah.
I would say so. I just feel like maybe if even if I would have had someone to say, well, you know what, this happened. Yeah, you're young, and this happened, but you can still do great. You can still be all of who destined and ordained to be. You having this child is not going to stop you from being able to become all of who you are called to be. You can do it with this child. You can still prosper. You can, if I had that, then I'm more than sure that my decision would have been different. Because at the very beginning of everything, before I even got to the place of thinking about having the abortion, I didn't want to have an abortion. I wanted to keep my child. It wasn't until once I did begin to share with certain people about my situations. Like I said, I could have talked to my mom, but I was afraid to talk to my mom. But once I started talking to other people that were around me, I found that I had more individuals, more young girls or young women that had somewhat experienced where I was at some point of their life, and they all was encouraged to go through with an abortion. And so,
Mm.
of course, they're encouraging me to do the same. You would think that it would be opposite, but when you're raised in an environment where like that's like the norm and it's okay, it's nothing wrong with it, and I'm not saying, well, I'm not going to say that I don't think it's something, because it is, but to be raised in an environment where it's just like, oh, this is the norm, this is okay, this is what's happening, you can do this, like you eat an M&M and then get up tomorrow and keep it moving, like that's how it was put out in the atmosphere. And so for that to be the response that I got for that situation, in my mind, this is okay. I, this person has done it, that person has done it. So maybe I'll be okay too. I don't. I can come out of this like how they did and move forward versus someone sharing with me, well, hey, this is your circumstances, this is where you are right now, but you can still go on and finish high school, you can still go on and pursue college, you can still go on and have a healthy child and be able to like, I didn't get that though,
Hmm.
so and I share that just to say, because I think that people fail to understand that you sharing your experience and being able to help people understand a different perspective from what may have been like pushed to you can help another person see things from a totally different perspective. But like I said, I didn't necessarily have that. All I had was, this is the way to go, do this. And young, naive, you're following what everyone else around you is saying to do. And, that's what happened. Eventually in my mind, I got in my mind that, well, hey, maybe this won't be so bad. Then I will be able to move forward and have a clean slate, et cetera, et cetera.
That that's so sad to me because I mean, so often when I talk about this issue, people push back and say it's not your uterus. What do you care? What's not? What is it affecting you or whatever? And so, I mean, I don't think that's a persuasive argument because one, if you feel that something is a human rights violation, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, I should just just ignore it. That's not how it goes. But I mean, I agree with that. Well, and then there's also the fact that there is such kind of participation with your tax dollars and other things like that. So more people are involved, and they like to say. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was a report about how the government's using aborted fetuses was purchasing fresh, never frozen fetal remains for humanized mice experiments. And I'm like, why are we doing that? That's gross. That's disgusting. I'm
Oh
like, thinking
God.
horror films. But also I argue that there's great societal harm also with this
Mm-hmm.
issue as well. So you talking about being in this environment of young girls who are sleeping
Mm-hmm.
around with, it's similar circumstances with what you're going through, and they're all encouraging each other to just go ahead and keep having abortions. And
Mm-hmm.
then they have their experience, but then this, you go ahead and listen to their kind of tutelage, and
Mm-hmm.
it ends up being a pretty traumatic experience for you.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of harm. So I appreciate you telling your story, but unfortunately I see a lot of people who share their story. And I mean, I appreciate you sharing it, but you're not much of an activist. But other women who share their stories, they get really slammed for it. People are calling them hypocrites for changing their minds on the topic. And I'm like, people can grow, people can make different decisions
Mm-hmm.
when they're introduced to new information. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not hypocrisy, but people will say, what if a woman really needs one? You may convince her not to. And it's like, it, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? So people
Wow.
are so pro that they don't like hearing the other side of things. So
Mm-hmm.
um whether you're for or against it, this is important for women to know, to just kind of weigh these things, because so many women, um whether it's not, maybe it's not today, maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it's not 5 years from now, but somewhere down the line you might be like, this really, really impacted me negatively. Like Deborah Tilden, we talked about her story, and she didn't realize how much it affected her until years later, and she had to unpack it, how much effect it had on, she did the partying, the alcohol, the drug use,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yes.
how it heavily impacted her marriage and even her relationship with her children. So it's really important to talk about these things, and again, I really appreciate you coming on here to tell your story. So in your book, when you describe it, when I first got your first draft, I was like, well, it kind of reads like you're giving me a Cliff Notes version of someone else's story. And then and then you came back and added to it, and it was like, to me it read like a horror story. You waking up after the abortion because you didn't know where you were in pain,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't know where your mom was. So
Mm-hmm.
can you just, what was that like?
Elaborate on that.
Yeah, elaborate, please.
Okay. So, yeah, that was that after, I want to say that was the very last day, because then that's when like they gave me an extra dosage of the medication to like really put me to sleep. And
But they didn't
after,
give you that extra dosage for free, though, right? You had to pay.
no, yeah, I
Well,
had to pay an extra 100 or something dollars for that. So yeah, and
They
then
didn't they didn't
like,
just say we're sorry that you passed out
oh
on the
no,
table in
of
tears.
course not.
Like we
Of
made a
course not.
mistake.
Nope.
We didn't care when you were like on the table.
Nope, nope, nope. From what I can remember, the first day when I was like going kind of basically in agony, the doctor is just like, oh, pretty much like, oh, you'll be okay, type of thing. Like, we're already in the process. It's
Go drink a
happening.
Verner's. You'll be okay.
Something like. But yeah. So I after the first day, I had to go back because I was so far along. It had to be a 2-day procedure. And so the second day when I went back, I was, in pain and stuff still, of course, from the first day. And I told the doctor, like, when you guys were doing what you were doing, I could feel everything. I still saw, I still heard. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we can give you an extra dosage, but you have to pay $100 or so to be put to sleep. So that's what took place. So this time, the second time, I was not aware of what all took place during the rest of the process. However, when I woke up, I was in a really dark room, and I was in like some like comfort seat type of like chairs. And I was the only one in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And when I woke up, I could just remember like my vision wasn't even clear. Like I could see a little bit, but I really still couldn't see. And so as I'm like slowly coming to, I somewhat began to panic because I'm thinking, well, where am I? How long have I been here? What is going on? And everything is pitch black. Like I still really couldn't see anything. What I could see though was like a small light coming from like the hallway area, and that's what I began to walk towards. And as I began to really stumble, because I wasn't really like walking like just straight up walking, I was kind of like hunched over, like still trying to find my way. But once I got to that light in the hallway, I then noticed that there was a door down the hallway. And so it's like literally like I'm in a horror film trying to make my way out of this room, this dark place. And as I'm going, all I'm thinking in my mind is I gotta get to my mom, like, or I gotta find my mom. And I continued to like walk closer towards this gray door. And as I got closer to the door, then I believe that's when the nurse saw me, walking, and then she like stopped me and she like grabbed me and she brought me pretty much back to the room to like try to make sure that I was like completely done with the medication, or like I had slept off the medication. But then my mom, also saw what was going on and, intervened. And then I end up just, leaving and going with my mom. She had my brother's dad actually, pick me up and carry me to the car because I told her I didn't want to go back to the room or wherever they were trying to take me. I just was ready to leave. And so yeah, that's how that happened. But it was definitely like you seeing something in a horror film. I woke up and that was literally how I felt.
Yeah, someone in the comments asked if they could ask a question. You guys can feel free. Like I don't break through like every question, but I mean I am looking. If you see me doing like that, I'm trying to read the
Yeah, I
comments.
saw, but I didn't know what was going on. I can't
I,
see, so I don't know
oh,
what
you
it is.
can't see the comments.
No.
No, yeah, there's comments. People watching and commenting about their own experience and their own stories, and um someone said that they were 16 and forced by their mom and their baby's father and suffered severe depression, anxiety, and wanted to die. Other than that, two beautiful sons and 47 still will never forgive myself. Wow.
Mm.
Um, people, um, cor- people forcing and pressuring people to do it is another big factor.
Hmm.
As well. Did the baby's father? He kind of he didn't pressure you though, right?
No, honestly, like I said, because in the beginning, when I first found out, we both thought that I would, keep the child, like keep the baby. It was totally my decision after I talked to a few people, and then I told him, like, this is what I'm going to do. But he had no feedback. He had nothing, much to say. And maybe because it was like, well, it's her body or whatever. I don't know. I can't say. But when we first talked about it, and I shared with him that I was pregnant, we both were in mind that I would keep the child. And yeah.
Did his indifference to the situation at all impact your perception of his indifference toward you?
Um, I can't say
Because you were
that
still
I
with him afterwards, right? For some time.
For some time, yeah. I think for us it was, well, for me it was more or less of the fact that he was already a father. And so I don't think for him that it bothered him, that it was like, oh, okay, bringing another child into this world. I don't think that part mattered to him. But once I made the decision that I would not, I didn't hear much, about it. We've talked about it years later, how he felt and his thoughts, but at that moment, he didn't have much to say.
I just know that I've heard women like say like, "Oh, it's my choice," but they want their man to back them up. But at the same time, they feel upset if they don't say more. Like they have complicated. It's a complex issue,
Thoughts, yeah.
whether you're for it or against or whatever. I not fully acknowledge that it's complex. So I was just kind of curious. But sometime after that, you did get pregnant. How how
Again.
how close was that to the abortion?
Uh, the last time, well, yeah, the last time, but the time, the next time that I got pregnant after that was about, I want to say 2014, close to 2015. So it was a few years after. But that time I miscarried. And I always have thought that it had to do maybe with me, having an abortion and, stress and, but I mean, I didn't specifically ask the doctor like, oh, but that was just always my thought. And I kind of maybe felt like, well, you know, could I not actually hold, children or whatever? But that was my only experience, after that. So I can't say moving forward. But yeah, after the abortion, I did get pregnant again, but I miscarried.
I think we talked too much about that issue. That's something that maybe YouTube would take issue with, honestly. That is something that is discussed and looked into by medical professionals and stuff. But and I know me and Deb touched on it a little bit. I don't think we went to too much detail about it, but
Hmm.
I can add her link to the description or whatever. And if you guys haven't watched that video with Deborah Tilden, you guys can go watch it on Rumble because you can't watch it on YouTube. Um, but yeah, I think again, it is important to have these conversations, whether you're for it or against it, to kind of know what you're getting into and
Yeah.
to know the possible repercussions. And I didn't realize it was so you had the abortion in 2011. You said you probably got pregnant again in 2014. You said probably around
Yeah, I
then.
think it was late 2014, early
It
2015.
was a different guy though, right?
Correct. Yep. Correct.
Because well, there's a big study called the Turnaway study where they look at women who were turned away from abortion and look at women who had an abortion and whatever. So there's a lot of issues with the actual study
Hmm.
itself, but both of them found like well, women who are turned away from abortion, like you go to a clinic and they're like, no, you can't have it, or there's some kind of law where they couldn't end up doing it or something.
Hmm.
That within the period of 5 years, they don't regret not having the abortion, and so
Mm.
like even a third of women who are turned away within a week, they're like, glad I didn't do that. So
Yeah.
to me that makes it all like super immoral that we don't like try to like stop women or people feel like you shouldn't be stopping them because I'm like if just saying no you can't do that and then a week making all the difference like that they would feel differently
Hmm.
and we won't put up the effort just to say stop you can't not right now
Hmm.
it is really really immoral to me but then I don't remember all the percentages of their decisions, but I mean, by the time the child has is their first birthday, like most of the women are like, "Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have this abortion." But it also
Hmm.
found that women who did have an abortion, they claim that they didn't regret it. Now, I regret can mean lots of different things. We know people who do things, who are conscious of the things that they do, and because they made a conscious free will decision, even though they know that it was probably the wrong decision or something that wasn't a good decision, they'll still be like, well, I don't have regrets because I knew what I did at the time. So a lot of people will cope with the things that the decisions that they've made. But also, I don't think 5 years is enough. Um, I think I've talked to I've never went through this myself. I've talked to plenty of people who have, and I've talked to women who um one particular woman I know, she was forced by her parents, and her she was in the church. She's an atheist now, but her parents were like, it's okay, like kind of like God would want this, just like the most twisted stuff, like God's okay
Wow.
with it. And they took her to Planned Parenthood, and she even wrote on her form that she wanted to keep the baby to try to like last ditch effort, and like nobody cared, nobody, you know,
Wow.
and she was a minor, and she in the doctors told her that the baby wouldn't even have a heartbeat at that time, because she wanted to see the sonogram and whatever, like, oh, it's, it doesn't have a heartbeat. And so she, even though she was forced and she didn't want to have it at the time, after she had the abortion, she like constructed her life around this idea of being pro abortion, that she wanted to work at Planned Parenthood. Where this trauma was inflicted upon her, she wanted
Oh,
to go
wow.
back and, I guess, participate and do the same to others. And so she didn't like have a philosophical change of mind until she got pregnant with her another child, and she went to the doctor, and it was the same time she had an abortion, and she looked on the sonogram or whatever and heard her child's heartbeat. Well, we saw an ultrasound, and heard the heartbeat at 108 beats per minute, and was like, oh my gosh, they lied to me. And she realized that since she was lied to, she's like, I'm gonna make these people's life heck. So
Yep.
she's an awesome pro-life activist, but that took her some time. That in other folks that I know, it took them some time before it kind of started like settling in, the impacts of their decision. Did you have any sort of like slow drip, I guess, in your mind of um that was a mistake? I mean, you said that you thought it was connected to your future miscarriage, but was there any other sort of I guess revelations that made you like, oh man, that was a mistake?
Um, I mean, just having fear. Like I had so much fear, after that. I had fear of, if I would even be able to conceive, I mean, like, have a child. Would I be able to, if I did, would I be able to actually carry out my pregnancy? Like, would I be able to do, any of the things that my body was naturally made to do? And I think overall, with the constant, um, how can I say that, torment, actually, it was like mental torment. Um, I, yeah, it, it's what, 2023. When did I do that interview with you? What, a year or two ago?
I think it was maybe a year ago.
And I'm just now coming out of some of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like me reflecting and just thinking about even how long of the process of my healing and, everything that I went through. It was just like, yeah, I would have never, if I knew what I know now, or even if I knew, um, I want to say maybe as well as what, maybe the day or a couple days before or after, like I would have made a different decision, like, yeah, I would have a child and my child would be, of age or whatever. But there's plenty of women, that are perfect examples to show, whether they had children younger than the age that I was at that time, or later, in life, that still came out and was able to succeed. And whether a lot of them honestly end up being single mothers, but they were still able to press forward in life and have a healthy child, have a good relationship with their child, have a good, steady foundation, and just, life itself being
Mm-hmm.
good. And for me, now, like I said, being able to reflect and know that, yeah, I could have still given my child a chance to live in this world and have life, and know that we would be fine, that we will be okay. I would have very much rather, go that route. So I think for me, it's a number of things that I reflected, and I looked at, and it was just like, yeah, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. But yeah.
And I know it was like a couple years between the period of time when you got pregnant again, and you were going to keep that baby, and you end up having a miscarriage. There's some women, they have an abortion, and then like not too long afterwards they'll get pregnant to have a baby, and some women could miscarry. Some women don't ever um can't conceive again. But for the women who go on and just they have a baby like immediately right after, it kind of begs a question like, why? If if someone had just kind of maybe convinced you not to,
Hmm.
like you're not probably in a drastic situational difference between like a year or a couple months or something. So
Nope.
maybe someone could have just, those sidewalk advocates that people don't want there anymore, or those. I read an article, beautiful article, um from a pro-life advocate, and he said his mother can confess to him that she had abortions, I think maybe like two or three, and the only reason why he was alive is because she saw a billboard, like a pro-life billboard, and it just finally dawned on her, like, she keeps, having these abortions because she's kind of trying to make the perfect situation, but though she keeps getting with the wrong kind of dudes, and it's kind of like,
Mm.
I got to make this work with me and the baby. And so he's just like, I owe my life to a billboard. you know
Wow.
so I guess those billboards are important.
Very much so.
Sorry, I'm just so I thank everybody for coming on and being in the chat and being in the comments, and those who are watching now, those who are watching back again. I think this is an important conversation for people to hear about this. And in our state of Michigan, 56% of the abortions are done on black babies, and we're only like 14% of the population.
Hmm.
So you talking about like your environment and the kind of mentality of the young girls are just like, this is just something you do, like it's kind of no big deal, like you can go ahead and do it yourself. um how do you think we can kind of break up this mentality that people have?
Um, it's things like this, stuff like this, and the schools, the parents, promoting more of, first, just not, because if I'm honest, I feel like when I was in school, it was like talked about practicing safe sex than rather just not doing it at all. So starting there, having those type of conversations, sharing with young girls and young men why it's okay to stay a virgin, until you become of age, or to a certain age that you feel like you're ready to.
Girl, you about to trigger somebody.
I'm just, it's the truth, but I feel like it starts there. Like I said, in my hometown where, I was raised growing up, and when I was in school, you heard more about practicing safe sex, and, how to prepare for teen pregnancies and different things of that nature, where if they had talked a little bit more about the greatness of being celibate and waiting until you get out of high school or whatever, that you are in a place that you can deal with being a mother and being a father, with a different mental maturity. I think it starts there, and promoting that it's okay. You don't have to feel weird or not normal because you decide to not be like every other teen or whatever they're showing on TV and everything else, to wait before having sex.
Mhm.
And then I think after that, also the parents, make creating that space that your children feel comfortable to have these type of conversations with you. Because I can honestly say, like, with my mom, I knew I could go to her and I could talk to her about things, but there were certain topics that I was just like, like, it was just a little bit, you felt on edge, like,
Mhm.
is this the right thing, and so, and with my mom being a single mother, she, to me, she's the best mother in the world. I would never, take it from her. But she gave to me what she had, and she was in an environment that was the same before I came about, so imagine if, she had something different, given to her as far as knowledge and different things of that nature, what more she could have done as far as, was sharing with me. But I don't only think that it only depends on the parents. Yes, the parents is a big core of raising children and raising them upright and give them the tools and knowledge and everything that they need. But as I've heard many times before, it takes a village to raise a child. So if the parents are pouring into their children and sharing with them the importance about waiting to have sex and different things of that nature, and then you have the schools also promoting these type of things as well, and then you got your neighbors and your church and your community, like you have all of us on one mind, sharing with these children the importance of them waiting instead of, putting themselves in certain situations. Then I think that will help a lot. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to stop this stuff from happening, but I do think that it will help begin to turn things around in a different, matter, where we don't see so much teen pregnancy or young girls getting abortions because they're afraid whether to tell their parents or to live life, going through with having a child at a young age, and economies like this, societies like this. And so they're looking at all the factors of what life brings negatively. If they just had someone to come in and be able to say, hey, this has happened, but you're going to make it.
Mhm.
And like I said, even outside of that, just starting off from jump, it's okay to wait before having sex. You don't have to feel like you're unordinary, or like it's just something's wrong with you because you decide to not follow what everybody else is doing. And so that's my thoughts of what I think would help a lot. Like I said, I'm not saying that it's going to completely cut things out from people, from children, or just people period, like still having sex at an early age. But I do think if we promoted more of those things, then it could help these children from getting in these type of situations. So
Yeah, we definitely have a culture that promotes kind of shamelessness within this particular topic of, you know, um sleeping around and stuff, but there is data that supports that it's had good results with like abstinence education and stuff. But
hmm
the issue though is that our schools are just not good at kind of replicating success at it.
hmm
And and I think that's because a lot of morality and stuff are that those are things that you teach in your home.
hmm
You set an example and you go to and you have those examples in your community and in your church and stuff like that. And
hmm
like when I was in school, and probably the same case for you, like we weren't allowed to talk about abortion at all, like positive, negative, we weren't allowed to talk about it. So you're saying,
very much true.
well, we gotta, do stuff in the school. The schools don't want you to talk about it. If they do talk about it,
hmm
they're gonna talk about it in a positive fashion. That's
hmm
just the trajectory that we're kind of going.
hmm
And like sex education, like Alfred Kinsey and stuff. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with them, but the people who said our sex education stuff, which were a bunch of weirdos and degenerates and stuff,
Oh
and
Lord.
even like the Guttmacher Institute, where a lot of people get or abortion facts and stuff. People on the right and the left, get their
hmm
statistics usually from Guttmacher. They were trashing like abstinence education. One of the reasons that they gave is because they say it stigmatizes gay sex and the gay teens and stuff like that. And
Oh
I'm
God.
like, the reason why we should be having sex education is for people not to get pregnant and not to get
hmm
the STDs and stuff, but we
hmm
should be discouraging people, underage people, from um, going out and sharing monkeypox or something. You know. um,
Okay.
but they don't want any stigma around the topic because they just
Mhm.
want to make it so normal. And sex is normal, but we can't have a society where people are like, "Oh, you're too young to be a parent," and you are. But it's like,
Mhm.
but procreation
Mhm.
creates. That's what it does. So
Okay.
there needs to be some kind of like mental line, and it's like,
Mhm.
I don't want the baby. I'm too
Mhm.
young, perhaps. Because
Mhm.
I'm like, because how can you say you're too young to be a mother, but you're not too young to um. I just use the tough language to be a murderer,
Mm.
you know, and it's not that in I guess certain parts of the country because it's legal, really legal, and in a lot of places, including our state and stuff, but
Mm.
it's illegal in a lot of places now. So
Mhm.
especially depending on what week it is, we can at least say homicide. Homicide is just, you know, that's not so much has to be a legal term, but it's a you know, it just means you killed another person. So
Mhm.
um, I don't know. I, I, I'm a cynic about a lot of things politically, I guess, right now. But I'm glad that I'm a believer because I'm like I believe in the
Mhm.
redemptive power of Christ
Mhm.
and a lot of things like socially that I think we need to see happen. I don't know it if they can happen naturally
Mm.
even with like good old fashioned conversations, or if they do, it'll take such a long time to retake the schools or destroy the schools. One, I don't know, one way or another. Like everybody homeschool, we ain't going to school no more. It's gone.
Oh.
It's just gone. No, I don't. I don't foresee that happening or something. So, um, like I don't know. To me, it just kind of seems like you need like a radical supernatural move if things are
Mhm.
going to get better at all.
Mhm.
Um, but so how did you I talk about this issue a lot, and it's not because I want to condemn women to hell who have done it, to or even women who are really gung ho fighting for it, because I kind of have this mentality of forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. But can you just speak for a moment about redemption over condemnation on this topic?
Hmm. Redemption over condemnation. Um, I think my story itself could also be seen in that fashion, of course, because after everything happened, of course, yeah, I've had my regrets. I have my thoughts, like, I wish that was something I would, have never done, and, et cetera, et cetera. I would love to see what my child, would look like today, whether boy or girl, and, just all these great things. But the great thing about redemption, the great thing about, the love of God is just that in spite of the decision that I had once made, God still welcomed me in, loved on me, and let me know that I can still continue on in relationship with him, be all of who he's called me to be. I did not have to sit in a place of darkness, depression, and all of those things because of a decision that I had made at a young age. I didn't have to sit and wallow in those things. I was able to now come out and be in a place of knowing and understanding how to move forward, making better decisions, and seeking God concerning making decisions for my life.
Mhm.
Whereas condemnation um, is not the same. Of course, if I would have not grown my relationship with God to be in a place of knowing and understanding that He still loves me and He still wanted me first and foremost, even after that, I would have been still possibly, well, I would have still been in a dark place, because I would have been in a place where I would have allowed the enemy and myself, torment and everything else, to keep me in that space of feeling unworthy, of feeling, just as though I was a mess, and just constantly going over the decision that I had made, and thinking about the whys, the what ifs, and all those things. And um, what I learned in my relationship with God is, God doesn't bring a spirit of, condemning. That's not, God doesn't condemn. He'll bring conviction based upon the relationship that I have with Him. And often conviction comes before you do a thing. It's not after it's already done. Conviction comes before, and it's more or less of a, like, a warning, an internal warning of, like, hey, if you do this, you may not want to do this. But condemnation is what puts you in a place of making you feel low and keeping you at that space. And so I can honestly say, although I went through what I went through, I still thank God for His love and for His grace and for His mercy, and helping me to see myself in a way that He sees me, in spite of past decisions and different things that I've done in my life. Now, does that mean that, oh, God was okay with what you did and et cetera? So that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is His love is greater than the mistake that I once made. His love for me, His grace, His mercy for me is far much greater. And He sees me as who He's called of me to be moving forward in my life, and not staying in that place, not staying that naive girl, not staying who I once was at 16, 17 years old, with the mindset, that I had. And so when you ask about redemption and condemnation in that type of situation, I think that's the best way that, I can explain it. Just sharing my story and being able to say, how God has brought me through in spite of what I've done in my past life.
That was a wonderful answer. I feel like I caught you a little off guard, but it was really good, Quill. It
You
was
did, you did, you did.
that that was a really great answer. Yeah, and when I was working on my book and stuff, I may talk to you quite a bit about it. I mean, I talked a lot about it while I was working on it, but that particular topic was very important to me, and it's
Mhm,
something I kind of start at the beginning, but at the end, that's where I really deal with it. And I do think that abortion is a great injustice in our world, and it is an evil
mhm,
thing. But I don't think I mean, you're not an evil person, or the people who find
mhm,
themselves in the situations aren't like, evil, just terrorist kind of, I don't know, the
mhm,
worst scum. That's not how women are when they find
mhm,
themselves in these situations. Um, but you find yourself in a maybe a no, you feel like it's a no win situation, and
mhm,
you don't see a good way out,
mhm,
and then people depress the humanity of the child, and they start saying things, and you can start convincing yourselves of it. And people make a decision, and people learn to suppress it, or people live with the regret. But
mhm,
I don't want it to be something that just hurts women forever. I really don't. I want it to end. I want it to stop. But like, and I wish women have would have never done it to carry those wounds and those scars. But
mhm,
when I read comments, like there's some people in the comments, saying that they'll never forgive themselves. I don't want that to be. I don't want that to be their lives. I don't want
mhm,
that to be part of their story.
mhm,
Um, like I said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Maybe you feel like you did know back when you did it, but you still made a decision. Um, I, I s- I still feel like you said, you can't really know. They may give you the papers, they may explain it
mhm,
to you, but it's not something that you can really know or
mhm,
understand prior
mhm,
to actually going through the process. And I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face, but I don't have the same kind of knowledge that other people who have experienced it have gone through. I can talk about their regret, but I don't, and I can sympathize or empathize with their regret. But I that's I don't know what that's like. But
mhm,
so these women have gone through this unique experience, not as unique as it ought to be, I guess. Just I just pray for your healing.
mhm.
Um, I just really pray for your healing. I don't want women to feel like, you know, like the guilt of that forever. I really don't want that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I do want abortion to end. But do you have any other comments or last sort of words for the women out there or people viewing?
Um, for the woman that you said, shared, being in a place of not forgiving herself, what I would just ask is that, she take the time to try and do just that, because um I'm a very hard critic, especially on myself when it comes to things, and especially when the potential, you have somewhat of an idea um of the potential that you have, or to some sort. However, I've learned, like I said, even with myself, that I can be a very hard critic, on myself. And no matter the situation, it could have been things that people had done to me. And I would tell myself, oh, well, you put yourself in that situation, or, you should have thought, you should have been smarter than that, or, something of that nature. But then I learned that, that is also like basically being in a space of condemnation, and you have to be in a place of knowing and understanding that God loves you in spite of, and if he loves you enough to forgive you for what took place, why can't you forgive yourself? And one thing that I learned, it was a hard lesson, but I had to learn to let go and give things over to God. The more that I tried to hold on to things, and I tried to bear things within my heart, or I try to make it so that I could understand, or try to, just make a map around whatever took place, the more I found myself in a dark space. And so I just want to encourage you, or any other woman that may have been through something like that, to know and understand that, God loves you, God forgives you. And just as he loves and forgives you, love yourself, forgive yourself. And it's okay to do that. You don't have to keep yourself in this space of torment and beating up on yourself because of past, decisions that you've made, whether you feel like you 100% knew what you were doing or not. There is still more life, for you to live and to give. And you can't give it and you can't live it if you are still making yourself or allowing yourself to stay in that dark space. So I just want to encourage you to just, forgive yourself, and, press forward. And just like you're sharing some of your story today, was saying what happened to you in the past, allow God's light to shine through that story. Allow his light to be able to say, yeah, this is what happened. This is what took place. But God, brought me through, and this is where I am now today. And then you can give back to someone else and help them to come through what they've been through. And so that's all that I have.
You're just so on fire today, Quill. You're just so
I,
on fire.
it's a touchy topic, but it's like, I think I'm very passionate because I've been through it. And
Hmm.
and don't get me wrong, because I've had family members ask me, well, how can you say that you wouldn't do that and you did it, and the hypocrisy and all that? And I'm like, that's exactly why I fight so hard to share with somebody not to do it. That's exactly why I'm so passionate with sharing with these young girls the importance of keeping themselves. Like, that is exactly why I would give whatever I could to keep the next woman from being able to experience and go through, what I went through. And just off of the physical and mental torment that I went through. So, just very passionate about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that argument is so wild. I mean, imagine if I jumped off a cliff and I'm like in a cast. I'm like, don't do it, bro. And you're like, you're a hypocrite. Don't tell me. You know,
Oh
like
my god. Oh my
like
god.
people with knowledge want to share their knowledge so people don't
Mhm.
make the same mistakes. Now there's just DC Talk song that's the hard way. Some people gotta learn the hard way or whatever. Um I don't want people to have to learn the hard way. I mean, I want
Mhm.
like a ban, you know, so you can't make a life lesson out of that. But some people will not listen no matter what. They'll do their own
Mhm.
thing. But there are people who are persuadable, like you said.
Mhm.
Maybe if there was a sidewalk advocate, or maybe someone that will do it multiple times, but they see that billboard and all of a sudden
Mhm.
they're like, you know what, I gotta take a look in the mirror
Mhm.
because I'm the issue,
Mhm.
and I have to make a decision to change my life. And so many people are
Mhm.
afraid of how a baby will change their lives. I know women who said that their babies have saved their lives because
Mhm.
they were in such a dark kind of place and they had to make themselves accountable. And I know not all parents, unfortunately, some of them are like, I'm still going wild and out, regardless of this baby here or not. But there are
Mhm.
people who, like, having children will change you so dramatically.
Mhm.
And like Deborah Tilden said that she was out partying for 7 years, and they kind of, when the baby came along, they're like, okay, well, we gotta get ourselves straight. But maybe if they hadn't
Mhm.
had that abortion, they wouldn't have had that 7 years of ratchet. I don't think Deb would put it that way, but
Partying. Yeah.
so yeah, it just, for people listening, yeah, please learn from people's
Mhm.
mistakes. But people, they're so determined to be rebellious, I guess, and do, like, I gotta
Mhm.
do me, I gotta do me. Like, no, be a better person than these people who are trying to warn you. But they're supposed to build up a better generation instead of
Mhm.
like just repeating the same cycle of dysfunction and stuff. But this was a great conversation. I want to show everybody your book, though, because you did talk about this experience in your book, and a bunch of other things. And so I want to encourage people to go check it out. It is on Amazon. So here is the cover there.
Thank you.
Oh, so from desperation to faith. So you guys can go ahead and check that out on Kindle or on paperback. So to learn a little bit more about Ronquel and hear her story some more, read her story and follow her. And do you have any other places that people can check you out? Like if you need a house or something, she can sell it to you.
Yeah, actually it's crazy because I literally just got finished up with the website and everything for Desperation to Faith. So if you want to check out Desperation to Faith website, you can go to dtfaith.com, and it has more just information as to what Desperation to Faith is about. Like, it started as a book and now it's a nonprofit. So you can go on there and check it out. I have plenty of like Bible study sessions and everything. The website connects you to the YouTube channel to get you to Desperation of Faith Bible study sessions. Instagram is the same, Desperation to Faith. And then I am a real estate agent, as Christina was sharing. I think I do have a website for it, and it's under Berkshire Hathaway Home Key Realty Services. But I don't have like the link and everything, for it's actually, I think it's on my original Facebook page. It's not on, so, but yeah, my life is, all about ministry. So that'll be that. Go to Desperation of Faith. That's the best place to get in tune and
You
see.
recently graduated from
I
Rochester.
did. I did. Look, I'm forgetting everything, Christine.
Well,
I
I didn't say it. I just said you were great, and we just, we just went into the interview. I didn't like do a
yes,
whole
no,
background.
yeah. No, I thank you for that, because sometimes I forget. But yeah, I just graduated Rochester University with Bachelor's of Business Administration. It was a phenomenal journey, 4 years being there. I learned a lot educationally, but I grew a lot spiritually as well. And so it's a really great school. Another just great avenue concerning like ministry, how God just, he was ordering my footsteps. So yeah, just graduated college. I'm working, now with real estate and another nonprofit organization by the name of Leadership Oakland. They are a very great nonprofit as well. And yeah, I don't know. I only think I can say God is doing great things. I'm just, I'm following His lead. So.
Amen. Amen. I do also want to encourage you guys go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles. I have plenty of articles about, this particular topic with, abortion debate and other stuff like that. So you guys can check out stuff on the website, different videos. Make sure that you follow me across my different social media platforms. If you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, there should be links to like basically everything. So go ahead and subscribe everywhere. You guys can check out my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. It's available on Amazon, also Barnes and Noble. It deals with theology, obviously, but also deals with, biology and philosophy, because people talk about personhood, when does life begin, and so it covers all those different things as well. So it's very well rounded. So if you haven't checked it out, please go check it out and pick that up as well. And there's also different merchandise that you guys can get on the site. I will show you guys a thing or two. Bear with me. Oh, I got this pro-choice men are sus, because this is short for suspect. Because
Oh.
they always got suspicious reasons when I'm talking to them. Some of the rudest comments, even violent comments from pro-choice men. I'm like, I thought no uterus, no opinion. Why are you like telling me you want to scoop up my eggs with a hanger? I'm like,
Oh,
just it's really aggressive stuff. So
what?
yeah, people are wilding on the internet, Quill.
Wow.
So I also got Life Wins t-shirts and Row KC board. I also made this My Money, My Business shirt, and you could use it for a lot of reasons, but I definitely made it because I was sick of people telling me it's not my business. I'm like, don't y'all want to appeal the Hyde Amendment? And don't y'all want stuff to pay for abortions and stuff?
I
So
like that. I like
I'm
that.
like, so how is it not my business when y'all want my money? So don't tell me it's not my business when y'all want my money. That don't make no
That's
sense.
true.
And
That's
so got
true.
other stuff as well. But if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com across the stream, run my website, all that good stuff. So if you can support in that way, I very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much, Quell, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone in the chat, everyone watching. I very much appreciate you guys being part of the conversation and sharing your stories as well. So God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.